Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Friday, June 26th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside today, we are looking at a high of 84.5 degrees and a low of 60.5 degrees. It should be a beautiful day, so hopefully you have some time to get outside. On the program today, we are examining what a recent right-wing political shift in Colombia signifies for the stability and future of the broader region. We will also delve into a United Nations report that concludes Israeli forces targeted children in Gaza. Along with these significant topics, we have a full lineup of other stories that you need to know about as you start your Friday. All that and more on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning. Colombia's politics just took a sharp turn to the right after Sunday's runoff. Our reporter Ethan has been following it all. Ethan, who won this election?
Good morning, Grace. The winner is Abelardo de la Espriella, a high-profile criminal defense attorney nicknamed El Tigre, or the Tiger. What's remarkable is that this was his first run for political office. According to Dropsite News and the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, the National Electoral Council officially confirmed his win on June 24th, just 2 days ago, after judicial verification of the results.
A first-time candidate winning the presidency. How close was this race?
It was razor-thin, Grace. Data from ABC, Colombia, PolitiFact, and Geopolitical Monitor all point to a margin of about 1 percentage point. Preliminary figures put de la Espriella at roughly 49.7%, against his opponents' 48.7%. In raw numbers, that's a lead of around 250,000 votes. So this was decided by a sliver of the electorate.
And who was that opponent he edged out?
That was Ivan Cepeda, a leftist senator representing President Gustavo Petro's historic PACT coalition. He conceded the election on Wednesday morning, which was the day before yesterday. But it wasn't entirely smooth. His team had filed more than 57,000 complaints over alleged irregularities, yet he still chose to concede rather than drag the dispute out further.
Now, I understand the United States took an unusual interest here. What happened?
That's the part that really stands out, Grace. U.S. President Donald Trump played a very visible role in this election. Back on June 2nd, just over 3 weeks ago, Trump went on Truth Social and gave de la Espriella what he called his complete and total endorsement. He cited the candidate's personal political support for Trump and his professional achievements. This wasn't a quiet nod from afar. It was a deliberate, public intervention in another country's vote.
Did Trump tie anything specific to the outcome?
He did, and quite explicitly. Trump conditioned the entire future of U.S.-Colombia relations on who won. He promised that a de la Espriella victory would bring, quote, the total support and strength of the United States, end quote, behind the new administration. After the win, Trump congratulated de la Espriella on Sunday night. Then, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, he claimed the candidate had been in 10th place before his endorsement propelled him all the way to victory.
10th place to the presidency. Why does Colombia matter so much to Washington?
The Trump administration sees Colombia as a critical strategic outpost, Grace, both for maintaining U.S. influence in the region and for combating drug production. And there's important backstory here. This alignment follows a stretch of real friction between the U.S. and the incumbent, President Gustavo Petro. According to Dropsite News, Trump sparred with Petro over deportation flights and narcotics control. The relationship had genuinely soured before this election even began.
How bad did that friction between Trump and Petro get?
It escalated dramatically. Tensions peaked in January, when Petro denounced the U.S. capture of Nicolas Maduro. That prompted Trump to warn Petro that, quote, he'll be next, end quote. Earlier, in October, the White House had gone further and placed President Petro, his wife, his son, and the Interior Minister on the so-called Clinton list of sanctioned individuals. That move effectively froze their assets and banned them from entering the United States, so this was personal and punishing.
Let's turn to the winner himself. What kind of platform is de la Espriella bringing in?
His platform blends right-wing populism with what observers call iron-fisted governance. As Dropsite News details, he's borrowed heavily from other regional populists. From Argentina's Javier Milei, he's taken the idea of aggressive government spending cuts. And from El Salvador's Nayib Bukele, he's adopted the use of megaprisons and sweeping crackdowns on organized crime. So he's assembling a regional playbook rather than inventing something entirely new.
When does he take office? And what's first on his agenda?
His term begins August 7th, so a little over 6 weeks from today. Security and justice top his list. He's promising a total offensive against armed insurgent groups, and Fox 26 Medford reports he's actually given those groups 1 month to surrender. Alongside that, he's pledging what he calls a crusade against government corruption. It's an unmistakably hardline opening message.
What about his approach to the wider world?
His foreign policy marks a sharp shift, Grace. He's promising strong backing of Israel, saying the relationship would be, quote, like never before, end quote. He also wants to create what he's calling a Plan Colombia 2.0, and he's expected to join Trump's Shield of the Americas anti-crime alliance. So he's positioning Colombia firmly within Washington's orbit and realigning its key partnerships.
That's a notable pivot. Does he plan any changes at the global institutional level?
Yes, and these are dramatic pledges. De la Espriella has said he intends to withdraw Colombia from both the United Nations and the Organization of American States. Pulling out of those bodies would be an extraordinary break from decades of Colombian diplomacy. It signals just how far he wants to distance the country from multilateral institutions. Whether he can actually deliver on that remains to be seen.
And closer to home, what's he proposing domestically?
On domestic policy, he wants to resume fracking and promote what he describes as traditional Catholic family values. On narcotics specifically, he's pushing supply-side eradication as his counter-narcotics strategy. That aligns neatly with Washington's long-standing focus on cutting drug production at the source. Taken together, it's a conservative, security-driven vision for the country.
Now, his background as a lawyer has drawn some scrutiny. Why is that?
That's right, Grace, and it's significant. Despite his political rise, De la Espriella remains a deeply controversial figure because of his legal career. He has defended former paramilitary commanders linked to crimes against humanity. He's also represented Alex Saab, a political operator for Nicolas Maduro, and he defended the man behind the largest Ponzi scheme in Colombian history, a fraud that affected 200,000 people.
That's quite a client list for an incoming president. What should we watch for next?
The big question is whether he can govern as aggressively as he's campaigned. With that 1-month surrender deadline for armed groups and pledges to exit major international bodies, his first weeks in office could be turbulent. We'll also be watching how the U.S.-Colombia relationship develops under such open Trump backing. And Chepeda's 57,000 complaints, though he conceded, may still echo through Colombian politics.
Fascinating story, with a lot still to unfold. Ethan, thank you for breaking it all down for us.
Always a pleasure, Grace.
Welcome back. Our next story is a sobering one, centered on a major new report about children in Gaza. For the details, we're joined by reporter Chloe. Chloe, what exactly did this report find?
Thanks, Grace. On June 23, 2026, just 3 days ago, the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the Occupied Palestinian Territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel, released an 88-page report. It concluded that Israeli security forces have deliberately targeted Palestinian children as a central element of a genocide in Gaza. The commission is chaired by Srinivasan Muralidhar. It found children were targeted both directly and indirectly.
When you say directly and indirectly, what does that distinction actually mean?
Direct targeting, according to the commission, involved precision weapons like sniper rifles and quadcopters. Indirect targeting meant what the report called the, quote, systematic destruction of the conditions necessary for their survival, end quote. So that's everything from healthcare to food to clean water. The commission's argument is that both approaches together point to genocidal intent.
Let's talk about the human toll. What are the casualty figures here?
They're staggering, Grace. According to reports from Middle East Eye, Between October 7, 2023 and October 7, 2025, Israeli military operations killed at least 20,179 children in Gaza and wounded 44,143 others. The Commission stressed the real numbers are likely higher because some deaths went unrecorded. Of those killed, at least 5,031 were under the age of 5. That includes 1,029 under age 1 and roughly 420 newborns.
And there are children still unaccounted for, is that right?
That's right. An additional 5,160 children are estimated to be buried under rubble. So the figures we're discussing are, in a sense, incomplete. The Commission was careful to note that throughout the report. It paints a picture of a death toll that may never be fully known.
You mentioned precision targeting earlier. What evidence did the Commission point to?
The report cites 17 medical practitioners who treated children with single gunshot wounds to the head and upper body. That pattern, the Commission argues, isn't consistent with crossfire or accident. It documented several specific incidents by name. And these are difficult to hear, Grace, but they're central to the Commission's conclusions.
Go ahead and walk us through some of those documented incidents.
On January 29, 2024, the report says the 401st Brigade of the 162nd Division deliberately shot 5-year-old Hind Rajab and 6 family members in Gaza City. It then says rescue efforts were obstructed when an ambulance was shelled, killing 2 paramedics. Just days earlier, on January 24th, the 98th Division shot a 15-year-old boy holding a white flag in Khan Yunis, then shot his 20-year-old brother. These were not isolated cases, according to the Commission.
You said quadcopters were involved too. What did the report describe there?
Yes, and these are among the most harrowing accounts. On April 12, 2024, a quadcopter operator shot a 10-day-old baby boy in the head while he was being breastfed. Then on August 24, 2024, a quadcopter operator shot a 4-year-old girl in the head while she was eating with her family. The report also documents a sniper from the 99th Division shooting an 8-year-old boy in the buttock on December 10, 2024.
There was a ceasefire in October 2025. Did the violence stop then?
It didn't, according to the Commission. That ceasefire was referred to by the South African Communist Party as the, quote, Gaza Peace Plan, end quote. But the Commission documented more than 100 children killed and hundreds wounded after it took effect. On November 29, 2025, a drone strike by the Kafir Brigade killed 2 brothers, aged 9 and 10. And on December 10, 2025, a 16-year-old boy from Jabalia camp was shot and then run over by an Israeli tank.
I understand aid sites were also a flashpoint. What happened there?
From May 2025, the Commission says soldiers shot children at or near Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid sites, often abbreviated as GHF. So families seeking food and supplies were caught in the violence. That's part of why the Commission frames this as systematic rather than incidental. The pattern, in their view, extended even to places meant for humanitarian relief.
Let's shift to the West Bank. Was the situation there similar?
It was serious, though the scale differs. Between October 7, 2023 and October 20, 2025, Israeli forces killed 213 children in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The Commission found that forces systematically targeted boys by labeling them, quote, terrorists or future terrorists, end quote. For example, the Menashe Brigade shot a 2-year-old girl in the back of the head on January 25, 2025, and the Ephraim Brigade shot a 10-year-old boy 3 days later.
And what about settler violence? That came up in the report too.
It did. The South African Communist Party and Middle East Eye detailed the role of settlers, noting more than 1,000 attacks across 230 communities in just the first half of 2025. The incidents included the abduction of 2 siblings under 5 at knife point in April 2025. There was also the abduction, beating, and sexual assault of 2 15-year-old boys in August 2024.
The report also covered detention. What did it find about children in custody?
Since October 7, 2023, more than 1,655 children have been detained in the West Bank. As of late 2025, 51% were held under administrative detention, meaning without formal charges. The documented abuses included blindfolding, beatings, stress positions on gravel, and the use of dogs. The commission also received testimony that prison guards raped boys and used sexual violence as a systematic component of detention.
Those are deeply disturbing allegations. Were there specific cases named?
There were. In one instance, a 15-year-old at the SDE Tiemann facility was the only child in a cell of 70 adults. Another 15-year-old was reportedly electrocuted via a needle in his shoulder. And on March 22, 2025, a 17-year-old died in Megiddo prison from severe, prolonged malnutrition. The commission classified that death as willful killing and torture.
You mentioned the destruction of survival conditions. Let's start with healthcare. How bad was it?
The commission called it, quote, systematic destruction, end quote. All 3 major pediatric hospitals in Gaza were forced to close within 2 months. By November 2024, neonatal incubators had dropped from 178 to 54. Investigators at Al Nasser Pediatric Hospital found 4 decomposing babies, and between December 2024 and February 2025, 15 newborns died of preventable hypothermia.
Did the report track how that affected newborns over the longer term?
Yes. By March 2026, just a few months ago, 70% of newborns were underweight or premature, and miscarriage rates had increased by up to 300%. On public health, a blockade halted a planned April 2025 polio vaccination for 600,000 children, and polio had already returned in August 2024. UNICEF reported 151 child deaths from malnutrition by October 2025.
And education. What happened to Gaza's schools?
Between October 2023 and October 2025, Israeli forces hit 459 of Gaza's 564 school buildings. That's over 97% damaged or destroyed, denying 668,000 children formal education for 3 years. The 252nd Division was cited for demolishing 2 UN schools in Beit Hanun. In the West Bank, demolition orders were issued for 85 schools, and over 550 children were expelled from UN schools in Shufat camp in May 2025.
So what are the report's legal conclusions, and what is it calling for?
The commission concluded that Israeli authorities have committed genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes in Gaza, as well as war crimes in the West Bank. The deliberate targeting of children was cited as key to establishing genocidal intent. It also documented 35 instances of soldiers filming themselves mocking or destroying children's belongings, calling it a, quote, culture of dehumanization, end quote. The commission urged the International Criminal Court to prioritize crimes against children and recommended reparations, accountability, and international sanctions.
And how have the various parties responded?
The South African Communist Party welcomed the report, calling for the international isolation and prosecution of Israeli leaders. According to the BBC, Israel has rejected the report, calling it a, quote, libelous sham, end quote. And Middle East Eye noted that Israel failed to respond to 13 separate requests for information or access from the Commission. So the dispute over these findings is far from settled.
Heavy material, but important reporting. Chloe, thank you for breaking it all down for us.
Thank you, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. Turning to the halls of justice, the Supreme Court has handed down a series of rulings that really move the needle on immigration. In a 6-3 decision for the case of Mullen versus Doe, the court ruled that the administration can pull the plug on temporary protected status for Syrian and Haitian immigrants. Justice Samuel Alito noted that these protections are discretionary, a move that leaves 1,300,000 people nationwide, including 147,000 in Texas, on shaky ground. The court also gave a green light to asylum metering, meaning Customs and Border Protection can now throttle the number of migrants seeking asylum at ports of entry. Justice Alito argued that people haven't truly arrived until they've physically stepped foot in the country, effectively overturning previous rulings. To add more fuel to the fire, DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin says it will now be a breeze to remove lawful permanent residents who commit crimes. While Secretary Mullin and Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche are hailing this as a win for the rule of law, opponents like Representative Sylvia Garcia and the Cato Institute warn of a major economic blow. Justice Sonia Sotomayor didn't mince words, claiming the metering decision extinguishes the light of the torch of the Statue of Liberty. Across the globe, Venezuela is reeling after a double whammy of earthquakes struck near Yumare. Two massive quakes, measuring magnitude 7.2 and 7.5, hit less than a minute apart. Health Minister Carlos Alvarado reports 235 dead and 4,300 injured, though officials fear the death toll could climb into the thousands. Caracas and coastal cities are in ruins, and the port city of La Guaira is a total disaster zone with over 100 collapsed buildings. With the main airport terminal roof caved in and schools shuttered, a nationwide state of emergency is in effect. Rescue teams are rushing in from Mexico, Chile, and El Salvador, while the United States is sending urban search and rescue teams from Los Angeles and Fairfax counties. President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio say the priority is a rapid response to save lives. Meanwhile, things are getting salty in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has set up the Persian Gulf Strait Authority to levy tolls on vessels, a move that analysts say could cause a global inflation surge, since the strait handles over 20% of the world's crude oil and liquid natural gas. While the UAE is trying to bypass the strait entirely to reach zero dependence, tensions have boiled over with an Iranian attack on a Singapore-flagged cargo ship near Oman. The International Maritime Organization has hit the pause button on its evacuation plan to ensure safety. Amidst this, oil prices dipped about 3%, with Brent crude at $72.83. Adding to the drama, Iraq is threatening to jump ship from OPEC if they don't get a higher production quota, following the UAE's exit in May. Finally, a diplomatic spat is brewing over frozen Iranian assets, with Vice President J.D. Vance claiming the funds will be used for American agricultural products, a claim the Iranian parliament flatly rejects. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.